Hi everybody, welcome to Dandelion Cottage and Watercolor Wednesday. I'm Leslie Watkins. It's been a busy morning so far, and there's a lot of construction still going on outside, so if you hear some noisy sounds, just bear with me. They've been out there for a couple of weeks and I expect they'll be finished soon. They're putting in a new water main up and down the road, so it's a really big job. And it's already been a day. I was up early this morning. I got a lot of things done. I ran a lot of errands, and I feel like it's almost cocktail hour. But anyway, I did walk through the garden a little while ago, and I found some beautiful Helianthus. So these are the Helianthus flowers. They are in the sunflower family. And some varieties have a darker center, like a black-eyed Susan, and these have a kind of a yellowish center. And I love these. They self-seed around. They're very showy this time of year, and I love this kind of summer, late summer and early fall garden. That's when I really get the time to enjoy the gardens and just love seeing all the activity going on. So anyway, I thought we would do a quick little watercolor based on these specimens, and I'm going to keep it very simple. This is going to be a sort of a beginner's introduction to watercolor. You just need 3 colors, which I'll show you: a pencil, a brush, some water, some paper towels, and you'll be ready to paint. So let's get started. See if I can get these arranged so that you can get a nice view of them. That's pretty good. Now you see how you can get a view of the back of one of these flowers. Don't forget that the backs of the flowers can be really interesting and well worth a careful study. So make sure you look at your flowers from all different angles. And you'll see this flower is missing a little piece of its petal. It's got a hole in one of its petals. Those little characteristic things, those changes in colors, can be really interesting in the finished painting. So don't go for perfection, and do careful observation of the particular specimen that you're looking at. And this is a nice arrangement because we've got some of these older flowers, got some new flowers. I've got some buds just beginning to open. Here's a bud that is still beginning to form. So a nice assortment. I don't know if you can hear the birds, but they are complaining about the noise that the construction makers or workers are making. They've been the construction crew has been out there since 7 o'clock this morning. They're making a lot of noise, and the chickens and the peacocks are all making a big fuss about it. Here are my paints. I'm just using yellow, red, and blue. These are tubed watercolors. You can also use the re-inkers. If you're a paper crafter and you have stamp pad re-inkers like this, these work great so long as they're water-based. So I've, again, a yellow, a red, and a blue. And it can be any red, yellow, and blue that you like. Just use what you have. And if you've only got one color, you can do a monochromatic. So that can be an excellent exercise in tonal values. I've also got a paintbrush here. I'm just using a small brush today. This is a number 4 because the paper I'm using is very small. And I have a number 2 pencil with an eraser. I'm just checking my internet, making sure that it's working. It looks like it's fine. I also have a pint-sized deli container with some water in it off to the side. And I have a plain old kitchen sponge. This has never been used for anything except for painting, so even though it's got some stains on it, it's nice and clean. It doesn't have any grease, and that's very important. You don't want to mix grease with watercolor. And then I've got a paper towel handy in case I need it, and I see we're a little crooked. Let me see if I can straighten this out. It's a little bit better. And I have a piece of watercolor paper here, and this is just a small scrap, and it measures approximately 3.5 by 4 3/4, and I'm going to use this to make a card with, a greeting card. And I've just torn it out to fit the card base, which is a standard size 4 1/4 by 5.5. And this is hot press paper, and this is a 90 pound, so it's very light. And I like to use that with the note cards because they don't need. I'm already using cardstock as a base, so I don't need to make them any bulkier. And I think that covers just about everything that I'll be using here today. I'm going to zoom you in closer so you can see better. And I'm just going to pull out one of these flowers so I can look at it more closely. And the other thing I want to point out is that I have one light source coming from the left, and that is my north light window. So it's a constant light source that does not change throughout the day. If you're interested in learning more about how to get set up in your studio for watercolor painting, or if you'd like to learn about the materials that are best to get started with so you don't spend a lot of money on a lot of things that you don't need, and if you'd like to learn about various techniques from various water related techniques and spatter and basics like creating form, volume, dimension, and aerial perspective, please go to my website at dandelioncottagedesign.com and subscribe to Notes, and I will put you on the mailing list for the announcement of the next beginning watercolor workshop coming up. And I will also post that below after I do the video. So that's the best way that I can get in touch with you, is if you get on the list for Notes. And I won't spam you, I don't send out a lot of stuff, but I'll just keep you up to date on what's going on. Alright, so these are a kind of a very simple daisy style flower. So I'm just going to start by putting my center down, and then I'm going to just pick out a few of the petals, and I'm paying attention to the direction that they're growing in, and also some of these petals are sort of curling a little bit, so I want to get that character. Some petals, well, I guess all of the petals really have these beautiful pleats in them, so I want to get some of that characteristic down. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And I'm not being overly careful here. This is not meant to be a very careful drawing. This is simply a kind of a road map for me to follow, so I get things located in the areas that I want them to be. Now I can move my stem around and get a better view of this bud. And I'm going to place that right over here, and it has these kind of wonderful calyx, I think that's called. The outer case of the bud is called a calyx, and it has these wonderful kind of pointy portions which may be the sepals, and then the stem springs from the bottom, and just about half an inch or so away from the bud I get my first little leaf. So I'm going to include that. And it has a serrated edge. So serrated meaning pointy, like a serrated knife. So I want to capture that quality. And the leaves are opposite. So there's another leaf coming off the other side. And I'll get that in there. Some of the veins. And the stem for the larger flower can come down through here, and they join. And remember what I said about the back of the flower being interesting? See that wonderful shape and those little points? I'm going to add another flower, sort of a back profile 3/4 view over here, facing away from us. Okay, so that's just a quick sketch, just to get everything situated on the page. And next I'm going to give my watercolors a spritz. Hi Kelly. Good morning. How are you today? I hope you've had a nice morning. Now these sunflowers are a deep, rich yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yellow, but I'm going to add a little bit of red to it to give it more of an orange quality. And I'm mixing up a great big puddle of that. And then I'm going to start with a diluted mixture. So just a light wash. And I'm purposely keeping this very sketchy. Okay, I just want this to look like a nature study, which is what it is. And I'm using my brush to kind of shape the petals. So that's where these good quality watercolor brushes really help you to get the job done. Now I'm going to go back in to those same areas, this time with a little bit of a darker mixture. And I'm going to just indicate some of the folds and ruffles in these petals, going right around. Okay, and then taking that same yellow, this time mixing it with blue, I'm going to make a sort of a yellow-green. These leaves are definitely more on the yellow side. Get the stems established, the back of this flower. Leaf. And I'm painting very quickly, very sketchy. This shouldn't take you any more than 10 minutes or so. Okay, don't overwork it. And now I'm taking a darker green to just get some of these shadow areas started. Oops, just dropped my sponge. Hang on. Okay. With the tip of my brush, I can start to indicate some of the details in the leaves. And I want to get these pointy sepals. It looks like a little crown. There we go. And then the center of the flower has a lot of texture going on in it. So let me just get the shape of it. So it's this great big kind of a dome shape. And then if I take that slightly darker orange mixture, and this time I want even darker, so I'm going to add just a drop of blue to make it even darker. You can start to get that indicated. And there's also a kind of a little depression in the center. There we go. Alright, so now at this stage I can start paying more attention to some of the details and doing some of the finer work. So I'll look at the back of my flower again. And I'm going back into the petals. with a stronger color. And these petals are kind of curling toward us as we look at it from the back view. There we go. And maybe just a couple of spots on the front here on our main flower. And at this point, I am paying attention to the shapes of the petals, and I'm being much more careful with my drawing, because I do want to capture the characteristics of this particular specimen. So I'm just kind of taking my time here. All right, and then I just want to test. My center is still pretty damp, so you know what? I'm just going to, for the sake of the video, I'm going to dry it a little bit so I can get a little more detail in there. Because I want that center to have some texture, feeling of texture to it. All right, so here's a close-up of what that looks like. And if I move around the picture and work on different areas simultaneously, it gives the painting a chance to dry a little bit, so I can get more detail. Now, where I live, we've had a tremendous amount of rain lately, and even last night at 3 o'clock in the morning, the thunder and lightning woke me up, and it was pouring. So it's taking extra long to dry today, the watercolor is. So there's not a lot I can do about that right now. So I may not be able to get all the details in the picture. In time for the end of the video, but I can get you close enough so I think you'll get an idea of how you can go about doing something like this. And let me see if I can get that center a little darker. Mixing all three colors together to get a kind of a dull violet tone. And I'll just see if I can get a little richer here and there. Okay, so I think that's about all I can do at the moment. So I'm going to give this a chance to dry a little bit while I stamp a sentiment. Now I've got the sentiment from this stamp set called Welcoming Window, and there's a really long sentiment here that I like very much. It says, wishing our paths crossed a little bit more often. And I live in a very small town, and I don't often get to see all of the old friends that live a ways away. So I thought this would be a really nice sentiment to include on the card. And for this, I'm going to be using crumb cake. So I've got my crumb cake ink pad out. I like crumb cake because it's a nice neutral color. I don't like to use black very often because I think it's a little bit harsh. So I'm just going to ink this up. And actually, before I do that, I think this is a little bit too thick. I'm just going to tear this down the center to make it a little more narrow. And this is just a piece of scrap watercolor paper. I hope I've got enough ink in here. I haven't re-inked this lately. All right, now excuse me while I get my head right over this. Okay. I like doing sentiments this way, where they almost look like a message from a fortune cookie. Okay, so that they don't compete with the artwork so much. Right? They just sort of complement it. And for my card base, I've got a piece of the thick Very Vanilla. And I have a matte here that I thought would look nice with the color in the Helianthus. This is one of the new colors. This is called Fresh Freesia. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. First, I just want to smooth out the edges here. Oh, I see some more people have joined us. Who's here? Shelley and Christine, good morning. Southern Minnesota. So exciting to see where everybody's from. I love that. You know, if there's one thing that we can be grateful to the pandemic for, it would be the increase of people, I think, on the internet and being able to participate in different events from all over the world. It's so fun. So I'm very happy to see you all here. Okay, so there is my Fresh Freesia. Zoom you out a touch. There we go. Now I'm going to be very careful with this because I think it's still damp. Once this is fully dry, I will go back into it with, well, I'll add a few more details, but I'll also use my kneaded rubber eraser to remove some of the extra pencil lines. I don't mind it looking sketchy, I just don't want to look overly sketchy. So I'll leave some, I'll take some away, I'll just be very careful about which lines I remove. So again, a little bit of glue, and I'm not using very much, just a thin bead around the edge. And as I mentioned before, this is just a torn scrap, which I really like. And the bottom edge is actually the natural decal of the paper. And that's very desirable to have that exposed. And when you tear the paper rather than cut it, you're actually imitating that kind of deckled edge. Now I'm getting a message, my storage is full. If the video cuts short, I just want to put this on here, give you an idea of what that will look like. So there we go. There's the card for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you stay well, stay happy, stay creative, and I will see you next time.